Number 7. James Worley. 20-year-old Sierah Joughin was riding her bicycle near County Road 6 in Metamora, Ohio, after departing from her boyfriend's house on the evening of July the 19th of 2016. When the young woman never returned home, her family contacted the authorities to report her missing. Later that night, the Fulton County Sheriff's Office came upon Joughin's bicycle several rows into a cornfield near where she'd last been seen. Investigators noted that there were signs of some sort of struggle near the crime scene, as well as motorcycle tracks in the crops. Several other items, including a pair of sunglasses, a screwdriver, and a box of automotive fuses, were also found near the bicycle. While canvassing the nearby area, officers encountered a man by the name of James Worley, who indicated that his motorcycle had broken down in the area of the crime scene and that he'd lost items of the same description as those that had been recovered. The man, who'd been sentenced to prison time back in 1990 for assaulting and attempting to kidnap a female victim, was officially classified as a person of interest after a witness claimed to have seen his passenger van speed through the area on the night of Joughin's disappearance. Investigators conducted a search of Worley's property, whereupon they discovered a hidden room in his barn that contained multiple pairs of women's underwear, restraints, and a freezer stained with blood. Joughin's DNA was recovered from a strip of duct tape and an inflatable mattress that had also been found in the barn. Worley was arrested 3 days after the young woman had gone missing. That same day, Joughin's remains were discovered in a shallow grave, located a few miles from Worley's property. Following the case's ensuing legal proceedings, the man was convicted of murder, kidnapping, assault, and other related charges, and was consequently sentenced to death. Despite his previous violent conviction, Worley reportedly hadn't been listed on any state or federal offender database prior to committing his latest offense. His property was awarded to the victim's family, who had the barn where she met her tragic demise demolished. As of the latest updates on the matter, Worley's execution was scheduled to take place on May the 20th of 2025. Number 6. Jimmy David Mills. On September the 17th of 2020, Atlanta man Jimmy David Mills entered a stranger's home in the 1600 block of North Druid Hills Road and confronted a woman inside as she showered. The woman's husband confronted the intruder, who then pulled out a knife and stabbed the man in the face and stomach before fleeing the scene. Police were alerted to the situation and began searching the area for Mills. A witness reported seeing him jump over a wall on Lenox Park Boulevard, where officers later came upon him as he walked out from behind another house. He was arrested and charged with aggravated assault, home invasion, criminal attempt to commit burglary, and possession of a knife during the commission of a crime. It subsequently emerged that Mills had previously been busted for another violent home invasion back in 2015, when he'd allegedly broken into a condominium and assaulted a pair of women. After pleading guilty to burglary, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and possession of a knife during a crime, Mills spent the next 5 years behind bars before being paroled only a month before offending again. Number 5. Sebastian J. Snyder. In September of 2016, the police in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, received a call about a violent, early morning home invasion in the 400 block of Wadley Street. When officers arrived at the scene, the homeowner reported having been awoken by the sound of someone banging on the windows. He eventually determined the visitor to be his girlfriend's son, named as Sebastian J. Snyder. The latter continued making a racket until his mother's boyfriend answered the door, at which point he forced his way inside and began attacking the man. The victim fell to the ground, but Snyder continued his vicious assault, allegedly choking him with his elbows at one point. Snyder eventually went to his bedroom in the family home and retrieved his belongings before leaving the scene. The police later indicated that the incident wasn't the first time the 25-year-old had become violent with his mother and those close to her. In connection to his latest outburst, Snyder was charged with substantial battery, domestic abuse, strangulation, and disorderly conduct. At the time, he also had an open case against him in Fond du Lac County for domestic abuse and was previously convicted on separate counts of felony battery in both Fond du Lac and Portage counties. For his various domestic violence offenses, Snyder faced the possibility of spending more than a decade behind bars. Number 4. Tyrell Rollins. On April the 23rd of 2020, repeat offender Tyrell Rollins was pulled over by deputies of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in Florida for having an excessively dark tint on his windows. Rather than comply with law enforcement, the 27-year-old fled the traffic stop, leading to a high-speed chase through the streets of Plant City. Officers eventually abandoned their pursuit due to Rollins' erratic driving. Per official reports on the matter, the man reached speeds of up to 93 miles per hour while traveling through the neighborhood near Maryland Avenue and Warren Street. He then ran a stop sign and plowed directly into a vehicle being operated by 53-year-old Amanda Renee Holmes Williams, a local grandmother. Rollins fled the scene of the crash on foot without rendering aid to the innocent victim, who was killed instantaneously. A short time later, Plant City police tracked him down to the backyard of a nearby house and placed him under arrest. He was charged with third-degree murder, fleeing and attempting to elude a police officer, vehicular homicide, leaving the scene of a crash with death, and driving with a license that was cancelled, suspended, or revoked. Rollins, who'd previously spent more than 3 years in prison for aggravated battery, was convicted of each count and sentenced to another 30 years behind bars. Number 3. Adarian Morris. A Tennessee man with a lengthy rap sheet dating back many years was convicted of aggravated assault and domestic violence in February of 2016. Despite the severity of 29-year-old Adarian Morris's alleged crimes and his status as a repeat violent offender, he only received a 2-year suspended jail sentence, largely due to his accusers' unwillingness to cooperate with the prosecution or testify against him in court. The month after his sentence was handed down, Morris was involved in a violent altercation with his girlfriend in which he struck her with a glass bottle inside a Brick Church Pike motel room, causing swelling to her head, arms, and hands. A warrant was issued for his arrest, but he wasn't taken into custody. On April the 5th of 2016, the man assaulted a different woman he was dating, inflicting a severe laceration to her face with a coffee mug and consequently being issued a second arrest warrant. 1 week later, Morris allegedly carried out an armed robbery of 2 acquaintances at their Nashville residence, holding them hostage for 45 minutes before finally leaving. The serial reoffender was subsequently involved in 2 additional incidents that led to him facing more criminal charges. One in which he tossed chemicals on a woman's face, and another in which he drove head-on into traffic while eluding police. Then on May the 19th, Morris entered his girlfriend's 25th Avenue North home while she slept. He proceeded to unleash a brutal attack on her, striking and choking her in her bed. In all, Morris had reportedly accumulated 20 active warrants for his arrest before he was finally taken into police custody following his latest domestic violence incident. He faced a myriad of charges including aggravated kidnapping and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Court documents indicated that he was subsequently ordered to serve 6 years in a community corrections placement after pleading guilty. Less than 2 months later, however, after Morris allegedly violated the terms of his placement by failing to report, the order was revoked. He was later brought to trial and ultimately imposed an aggregate sentence of 48 years incarceration. Number 2. Donald Green. Serial domestic abuser Donald Green was arrested in May of 2017 after allegedly beating and strangling his wife inside their West Howard Street home in Muncie, Indiana. 6 months earlier, Delaware County had launched a domestic violence court aimed at processing such cases through the court system more expediently. A county prosecutor labeled Green as the poster child for the new initiative. His latest domestic incident reportedly centered around his wife's failure to bring him home a sandwich from the gas station. The perceived slight sent Green into a rage, which was only exacerbated by his subsequent discovery that she'd thrown away his syringes earlier that day. Local authorities described how the man had repeatedly faced criminal charges in connection to his violent tendencies, but that most of the cases were eventually dismissed due to his alleged victims' unwillingness to testify against him. On July the 24th of 2017, Green finally faced punishment for his actions after he pleaded guilty to domestic battery, for which he was given a suspended 1-year jail sentence. Number 1. Antoine Johnson Jr. At about 11 a.m. on May the 4th of 2022, Baltimore police were called to the 2400 block of Greenmount Avenue after receiving reports of a shooting. Upon their arrival, law enforcement encountered a gunshot victim, a 26-year-old male who was taken to the hospital in serious but stable condition. The perpetrator of the attack was identified as 30-year-old Antoine Johnson Jr., whom the police described as a repeat violent offender. 3 years prior to the shooting, Johnson had reportedly been convicted of second-degree assault, which resulted in a sentence of 18 months probation. Before that, the man had served 5 years in prison in connection to convictions on charges of second-degree assault and a weapons offense. For his latest run-in with the law, Johnson was charged with attempted first-degree murder, attempted second-degree murder, first-degree assault, second-degree assault, reckless endangerment, and weapons violations. He was held in custody at Baltimore's Central Booking and Intake Center, pending the continuation of his case's legal proceedings. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have an inflexible 8 p.m. curfew or have your favorite food strictly outlawed? Let us know in the comments section below.